Hi guys, Dr. Rob Barrington here with some more nutritional advice and analysis. I want to talk about cancer prevention today. I'm just going to bring up a slide that I've made onto the screen, and I'll just go through some of the information that's on this slide. Many people seem to be getting cancer. We all know people that have been diagnosed with cancer, and it does seem to be an epidemic at the moment of cancer, particularly in Western and developed countries. Now, obviously, a lot of people that turn to nutrition are interested in understanding cancer and how to prevent it. And this paper is a slide I've made on a paper from a study that was done in 1998 by Clark and his co-workers, and it was a paper that was really looking at prostate cancer. And if we have a look at the original paper, what we find is that they were investigating the effects of 200 micrograms of selenium or an equivalent placebo on the incidence of prostate cancer over it was between 4.5 and 6.5 years, so quite a long period of time. And what they found is that the selenium treatment, the 200 micrograms of selenium, caused a 63% reduction in the secondary endpoint of prostate cancer during that time. And what that translates into is that there was in the treatment group that received the selenium, there were 13 cases of prostate cancer, whereas in the placebo group there were 35 cases. So that's quite a significant reduction, and that's very interesting. But if we have a look at this slide, there were other things that were found in this study. There was a 50% reduction in total mortality from cancer. There was generally a 37% lower total cancer incidence. And I've already mentioned the fact there was a 63% fewer cases of prostate cancer. There were also 58% fewer cases of colon cancer and 46% fewer cases of lung cancer in the treatment group that received 200 micrograms of selenium. Now, there was in this study, the subjects who experienced the greatest benefits from the selenium supplements were the ones who had the initial lowest levels. And what this indicates is that selenium, it may not be the only factor, but selenium deficiency appears to be one of the main factors in causing cancer. Now, there are many other nutrients that we could talk about in relation to cancer, particularly vitamin D. But selenium is certainly up there, if not the most important, one of the most important. If we look at the diets that we eat, they generally don't contain enough selenium. There's two ways we can get selenium. We can either get selenium in the plants, and the plants take the selenium up from the soil, and when we eat the plants, we consume the selenium, or we can get selenium from animals. Now, the plant route is limited due to the fact that most people do not consume plants that have been grown on selenium-rich soils. The animal route is more important to those living in Western civilizations, in developed countries, because animals are given selenium supplements to keep them healthy, and therefore their tissues do contain some selenium. But clearly, if we look at the data in the scientific, in the nutritional literature, what we find is that generally people don't consume enough selenium. Most good multivitamins will contain around 200 micrograms of selenium, and the recommended amount to have as a cancer preventative dose is around 200 micrograms. Now, I just wanted to really go over this again, because I have made videos on selenium before. I have written articles on my blog about selenium, and I just feel it's very important. People don't seem to take nutrition seriously on the whole, and I would suggest that if you've never looked at your selenium intake, if you've never really thought about selenium and weren't aware that it had a link to cancer, I would suggest that you maybe have a look at either taking a multivitamin with around 200 micrograms of selenium, or you take a selenium tablet of around 200 micrograms. That will obviously depend on your body weight and maybe how active you are and your biochemistry. But as a rough guide, that appears to be what is protective. And the interesting thing about this study was that it was those people who had the lowest levels of selenium that were the most protected. In other words, we can say that selenium deficiency increases your risk of getting cancer. That's not to say that cancer is a selenium deficiency, but if we have a look at the mechanism of how selenium works in the body, selenium is an essential nutrient that is required to create an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase. And glutathione peroxidase is the primary water-soluble antioxidant in cells. Now, the free radical theory of cancer suggests that a build-up of free radicals in the cells causes oxidative stress. That oxidative stress damages the genetic material within the cell, and that causes the cancer to be initiated. If we have high levels of glutathione in the cells, if we have a high antioxidant capacity within the cells, those free radicals are quenched before they have a chance to damage the genetic material. And therefore the genetic material it maintains its integrity, and we don't get the initiations of cancer. Everybody gets cancer all the time. We have natural mechanisms to fight cancer cells and destroy them once they're created. Cancer is something that develops naturally in humans and all animals. The problem arises when our defences against those initiated cancers fail, when our immune system is weakened because we don't have the correct nutrients, and when we have poor antioxidant status, and we simply have too much genetic damage to be able to correct it. And selenium appears to be linked to cancer through that mechanism, through its ability to form the glutathione peroxidase antioxidant system in cells. So there is a lot of information on selenium on my blog, and hopefully you may want to go and have a look at some of that information. I will put a link to the Clark paper in the comments box below this video so that you can read it yourself. There is some good detail in there. Clark has done other papers on selenium and cancer, and there are other authors obviously that have also researched this. And selenium is increasingly being seen to be deficient in many people in developed countries, and this may be relating to the high incidence of cancer that appears to be currently in a bit of an epidemic. So I hope that's some food for thought. I hope that if you aren't taking selenium, you would consider taking some selenium. Certainly I would recommend it as one of my top supplements. It's one of the things I would suggest that everybody needs to take. I don't think it's worth risking trying to get the selenium that you think you might get in your diet. You may well be able to get enough selenium in your diet. You may well be able to get selenium through plant foods, but I simply wouldn't risk it. I would always take a selenium supplement just to make sure that I've got that minimum 200 micrograms that are required. And as Clark showed in his study, that 200 microgram dose of selenium given as selenomethionine was able to reduce total cancer mortality by 50%. There's no drug that can do that. There's nothing pharmaceutical that can do that. There's no other nutrient I've seen that's ever come close to reducing cancer rates by that amount. So if you are interested in protecting yourself from cancer, I would certainly recommend that you get yourself a selenium supplement.